If your building project involves a party wall, you might be wondering about the costs of employing a party wall surveyor. Well, like all good questions, the answer is it depends. Please stay tuned to Hampshire Party Walls as we answer all your party wall questions. The first thing you must do when your building project involves a party wall is to follow the process outlined in the Party Wall Etc. Act of 1996. This is not optional, it's a legal requirement. This act comes into force after you issue a notice which alerts your neighbour of the work to be done on a party wall, such as cutting into an existing party wall or building on the line of junction at the boundary, or maybe excavation works close to your neighbour's buildings. Who pays? Well, the building owner, the one undertaking the building project, is liable for all costs associated with his work. This includes surveyor fees. There may be some instances where the adjoining owner is liable for some of the costs, but this is the exception rather than the rule. One exception is where the adjoining owner requests further work from the building owner because he might have plans of his own. He may ask for amendments that benefit him, and he may ask for the wall to be built a little higher than the building owner was originally planning, and so he will be fairly charged for those costs. So how much does it cost to engage a party wall surveyor? Well, this is a difficult question because there are so many factors that affect the price. The most important factor is, will your neighbour dissent, and will he appoint his own surveyor? Let me take you through a typical project and outline the possible scenarios and their associated costs. This will be helpful. Let's assume you want to build an extension up to the boundary line and you notify your neighbour first of all with a party wall notice. You can do this yourself and there will be no cost. If your neighbour consents to the work, job done. You've complied with your party wall obligations. If there's no damage to your neighbour's property, there's no cost, no compensation, no party wall surveyor fees. Second, let's imagine that your neighbour consents, but only if you do a schedule of condition. This is a survey of his house to determine compensation in the event of damage. This is our first cost. Secondly, what if your neighbour dissents and wants the protection of an award? At this point, you must appoint a party wall surveyor. Also, if your neighbour dissents and wants the protection of an award and wishes to appoint his own surveyor rather than use a joint or agreed surveyor, then you have the cost of 2 surveyors to cover. Where 2 surveyors are appointed, a third surveyor is selected to arbitrate in situations where 2 surveyors can't agree. So you can see the complexities here, and it all depends on how your neighbour chooses to respond to the notice. So on this spectrum we've gone from no cost at all the way up to the cost of 2 surveyors and possibly a third and a schedule of condition. So how much might this cost? London has its own pricing tier. I won't scare you with typical London costs, but here are some typical costs outside of London. So here's a list of split into when a neighbour consents and when he dissents. Firstly, if you issue the notice yourself and the neighbour consents, there's no conditional survey, there's no award, there's no surveyor fees to pay, the total cost is nothing. If your neighbour consents but wants a condition of survey, notice the second column here. The schedule of condition typically costs £300 or £400, something like that. You can also get a party wall surveyor to do your notice for you, and he'll charge less than £100, I would think, to do that work. So the costs of where your neighbour consents and wants a schedule of condition are going to be a few £100s. I've totaled that up to be 400 or so. Now, additional expenses come in when your neighbour dissents. At this point, you have to appoint a party wall surveyor, and he will draft an award and serve an award that says the time and the manner how that work should be undertaken. That's going to cost about £1,000 or so. In addition to the notice and the schedule of condition, we're coming in at about just under £1,500. If the neighbour appoints their own surveyor, then there is an additional cost involved. Typically, that's going to be more expensive than the surveyor that you have. So if there's damage to your neighbour's property as a result of the work that you've undertaken, the building owner, yourself, are liable to repair that. The party wall surveyor can guide you through that process. Let's assume there's a crack in the wall that's resulted. It might just be cosmetic. Decorating costs, you would get a few quotes and choose the middle quote. So in summary, how much does it cost? Well, there are many factors outside your control. Before you engage a party wall surveyor, ask about fees and hourly rates. This is Hampshire Party Walls answering all your party wall questions.